Did McLaren make a mistake by not swapping Norris and Piastri?
Yes, and they should have done it way earlier in the race. I feel like it seemed pretty apparent to anybody with eyeballs that Oscar Piastri had the better car yesterday, or I guess it counts as today, but you get what I mean. I think that Oscar, every time he got even a slight bit behind Lando, he was always able to pick it right back up within about 2 or 3 laps and get back into DRS range. Meanwhile, Lando was, as his strategist put it, he was running his pace, and they refused to make any sort of move past that because they thought that, I guess, Max was wearing his tires out up at the front, which clearly wasn't happening. So, yeah, I think in hindsight, it's easy to say that, oh, yeah, well, they totally should have done it. But I think everybody and their mother that wasn't a Red Bull fan was like, you need to swap them at some point, especially when you get to the phase of the race where Charles Leclerc had completely fallen off the pack. He was nowhere to be found. So the worst that was going to happen to Lando was he was going to finish third. Oh, dearie me. So, yeah, I feel like if McLaren wanted to win rather than trying to reinforce this like hierarchy in their team, which clearly favors Lando, and as we've discussed many times here, I don't think that should be the case. It looks really messy, and I think that I don't know if Piastri was going to be able to completely run down Verstappen because that car with clean air seemed to be pretty unbeatable, but we'll never know now because we had to let Lando let his buddy drive into the distance while looking at his rear wing. So, yeah, it's unfortunate for McLaren, but they have no one but themselves to look at.
Yeah, it's tough because I think what we're going to see from McLaren, especially if they really have this sort of dominance that we've kind of seen, is I think we're going to see like a Lewis and Nico type situation where they're so close and it's like they're battling and they're going to end up, I guess, for a lack of a better term, screwing each other over because they're just something's going to happen. They might connect. I mean, I get papaya rules and all that stuff we heard last year and we heard this year, but it's like Oscar, he might not have had the pace in practice and he might not have had the pace to catch up to Lando in qualifying, but it was blatantly obvious what was going on in the race and that Oscar would have gotten around Lando, and I think Lando would have fallen back a lot. And if it wasn't for his teammate not sandbagging behind him, did not go around him, I just think it was also hard to pass, though, like you said earlier, like with the dirty air and stuff. I think that really did apply here. But, you know, it's just like you're going to see a battle between Lando and Oscar, I feel. But quietly, if Max Verstappen continues to bring a fourth or fifth best car on the grid up to the front and continue to be up front on the podium and win races, then that might be, he might take advantage of it, of those two battling one another. And it's hard with the hierarchy. Clearly, they do favor Lando. I mean, obviously, why wouldn't you? I think because Lando's been with the team so long. Oscar's talent, I feel he was good, but I think he kind of came out of nowhere. I don't think anyone would expect this early on in his career that he would be contending for the world championship. I think it's just because of the lack of pace McLaren had the previous couple of years. But yeah, I think it was a mistake. I really do, for not swapping them. And I'm not going to say it could get them towards the end of the season, but I think those two are really going to start battling. And I think this was a prime example of Oscar probably in the back of his head, like, well, how am I going to even have a chance if I'm the faster car and they're not going to let me pass? I think they got to take some notes about Lewis, Hamilton, and Valtteri Bottas, where Valtteri would get the heck out of the way, but Lewis would give the place back if Lewis couldn't do what the team wanted him to do. And I think McLaren might have to take some notes on that. I don't think they can take the notes on Nico and Lewis because then obviously they're going to fall way back. But yeah, that's how I just feel about that one.
Yeah, you see sometime this year Oscar going to Lando saying, just screw you, Lando. Yeah, it seems like that these two could potentially be on a collision course later on in the season. Hopefully it doesn't come to that, to the levels of Lewis Hamilton and Nico Rosberg. But right now, McLaren seems to have a really hard time managing their drivers. I know it's obvious that the team seems to favor Lando over Oscar Piastri, but they really have like two number one drivers on their hands. And so that makes it very, very difficult. And I will say that I'm not a fan of team orders at all, But if you're thinking about this strictly from a business perspective, I didn't have the data in front of me. Obviously, none of us did. I didn't have the lap times in front of me either. But based on the eye test, it seemed like Oscar Piastri was a lot faster than Lando Norris during that portion of the race when Piastri was just closing up. So I do think that McLaren made a mistake from strictly from a business point of view. I feel like if it seems like Oscar Piastri had the pace, they should have just let him go to see if he could catch Max. But then again, there's no telling if Oscar would have been able to catch him for position because given the dirty air, how strong it was, you needed to be out front in that clean air. Max had the clean air, so maybe Oscar gets closer, but maybe he doesn't pull off the pass because you just get trapped in that bubble of air and you just get stuck. And there's really nothing you can do unless the guy ahead makes a mistake. So I feel like they should have at least attempted to have Piastri see if he can chase down Max. And if not, like you were saying, Matthew, like they did with Lewis and Valtteri Bottas, if he wasn't able to do it, just swap him back and let Lando, have his second place finish. And it's going to be interesting to see how McLaren's going to manage their drivers moving forward. It can be a good problem to have, or it can be a really bad problem. But what happened in Japan, I feel like it was potentially a missed opportunity here to do a little bit more than what they were able to do.